Hi, everybody. Welcome once again to Healing Minds, Opening Hearts podcast with me, Beschel Francis, where we talk about everything about sexual health awareness and also health discussion. Yes, today is a wonderful day. It's -2 degrees out there. It's a little bit foggy, but it's all good. I'm loving the weather, and I'm hoping you are as well. If today's the first time you're actually listening to this podcast, I promise you will not regret it because, as always, we always give you information that is something you really need to hear and something you would also want to talk about and discuss. And today is just an exceptional day because we'll be talking about or celebrating World AIDS Day. And I mean, what better way could we celebrate it than having Marvelous with us today? Marvelous is a fantastic and amazing human being who's actually done so much and talked about HIV awareness among the 8 African, Caribbean, and Black communities around the world. And she's here with us today to actually share some of those experiences and all of that. So yeah. Hello, Marvelous. Welcome today. It's good to see you.
Beschel. Yes,
Yes,
nice
yes,
to
yes.
see you.
Thank you. How are you doing today this morning?
I'm good. I'm doing fine. It's also foggy. I'm in Toronto,
Oh,
Canada. So it's also foggy. It has been raining and
oh,
the cold weather is starting.
oh, fantastic. Do you like winter? You don't?
No, no.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for actually doing this with us. It means a lot. It's good to see. It's good to see you here with us, and then for people to listen and hear from you directly would really mean a lot. I would like you to please to kick off. I want you to please could you please share your experience with us, your journey with us, and what has impacted you towards doing what you're doing right now.
Okay. So my name is Marvelous Muchenje. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, and I was diagnosed with HIV in 1995. So I'm actually an accountant by profession. When I was in Zimbabwe, I was working in a completely different field, a corporate world where I was just doing accounts, and then HIV visited, and I felt at that time there was so much stigma around HIV, and also who gets HIV was also something that was battled, and also something that was discriminated. HIV was seen as if it's only for people who are prostitutes, for gay
Mhm.
men, and I didn't fit in those categories. So I just wanted to raise awareness of that HIV is just like any other disease. And
Mhm.
so I started actually doing HIV work when I was in Zimbabwe. HIV has always affected my community and people I know. And throughout my life, there's also been so much stigma around it. So
Mhm.
one of my colleagues who I was working with at that time got diagnosed with HIV, and I was the only person who knew about her status in the
Mhm.
company that I worked with. And this company was also not in the health sector, it was a computer company, and we did accounts. So I was with her throughout her journey and realized also how she struggled with
Mhm.
disclosure, how she struggled with the fear of dying and leaving her children. And as I was part of that journey, I didn't even know that one day I'll be in her shoes.
Mhm.
So when I got diagnosed with HIV also myself, um, I didn't as much struggle to disclose my HIV status. Was for those that know me, I don't know how to keep quiet. I don't about anything. I just say it as it is.
You just
So
say
I just say it's how it's up to you how you take it.
good.
So I told my extended family, which was my cousins, and that I was HIV positive. And what does that mean to be HIV positive? Because those days HIV was just seen as once you're HIV positive, is equals to death. So I was also preparing for my death at that time because I didn't have access to treatment. I actually didn't have access to treatment from 1995 to 2005.
Wow.
So for me then, I was still in the private sector, but I was just so tired of hearing these negative stories on the radio, in the community, or when
Mm-hmm.
people die, people don't go to their funeral because they were still scared of also contracting HIV. So I decided to leave the corporate world and join the HIV sector. So I actually started working in the HIV sector in 2000, and I was
Okay.
working for a national organization called Zimbabwe National Network for people living with HIV. By then, I was working as the National Finance Secretary, so I was still doing finance, but most of my time I was not in the office. I would be seen advocating, I would be seen fighting with the government for access to care, access to treatment. I was working closely with the UNIFEM and Oxfam just to raise awareness of the issues on HIV and women. So I started just not working nationally in Zimbabwe, I started working internationally, doing advocacy work, but also just trying to raise the profile of someone living with HIV to demystify the misconceptions that were out there. So that's how I started working in HIV. But when I came to Canada, I came in 2006. Um, so I also, as a person who was already in the HIV field, I wanted to work in my accounting, but I was more gravitated to HIV. So
There's a
I
couple.
decided to go back to school, and I did my social work, my bachelor's in social work, and I did my global health in masters, and now I'm doing my PhD. I'm in my third year doing my PhD in social work, and my main interest is research on HIV, marginalization, and looking at sexual and reproductive rights. So I continue participating in the HIV field, and I participate wearing different hats. I wear my hat as a person living with HIV, as a researcher. I also work in pharma. I work for a pharmaceutical company now as the community relations manager, but I
Wow.
also sit on a policy tables. And I just want to bring the voice of people living with HIV, because it's not everyone else who's privileged to be open about their HIV status, who's
Mhm.
privileged to have sat at those different tables. So I want to bring the voice, but not only the voice of an African woman living with HIV, but I want to bring the voice of all marginalized people, even indigenous people. Even I know I might not be able to talk 100% about their experiences, but I have also worked in the field for a long time and worked with allies in those
Mhm.
fields. So that's why I am, and what motivates me in doing what I'm doing now.
Fantastic. That's a wonderful introduction. The thing is, it's so good to actually hear you tell your own story. I read
Mhm,
I was when I knew I was going to have this opportunity with you, this session with you. I did some research. I just wanted to know who is Marvelous, who is this wonderful person doing this amazing job. I wanted
mhm,
to have a feel of your work, and something. There was just something you were very
mhm.
intentional about the word intersectionality, and I
Yes.
know when you look at that word, there's a different layer in that. There's
Mhm,
a racial concept, there's class, there's
mhm,
ethnicity, there's
mhm,
gender, and then how
mhm,
you put that together into inclusivity, and then you're
mhm,
doing what you're doing. and i
mhm,
just and then you just said in your introduction, you saying that not everyone has the opportunity to actually
mhm,
voice to say things like this, because it's a
mhm,
very sensitive conversation. And then understanding your place as a woman,
mhm.
and then how did you overcome all of these obstacles? Like it's just amazing. I really want you to talk about that with us, please.
I think for me, like I said, I've seen friends die. I had
Mm-hmm.
seen my close friend die, and the struggles that she went through. She went through, like, even the stigma in the hospital, even the fear of leaving her children, the stigma of not wanting to actually even be around other people because she thought everyone would see HIV written on her forehead. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, how I've overcome those obstacles, I, I always have that vision, like that picture of my friend, knowing that she died when she didn't have some of the access to care that I have today. And some
Mm-hmm.
people have died not because of the HIV, they've died because of the stigma. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't die because of the virus. I told you, from 1995 to 2005, I was not on treatment and I didn't die. So, which shows us that HIV itself is not the one that kills. Of course, with time, if you're not on treatment, you can die because of other opportunistic infection. But what kills people more is the stigma. Is
Mm-hmm.
actually trying to think, what else are people thinking about me. So for me, I use my sense of humor as a way of talking about taboo issues. Sex is taboo, we don't talk about sex, but you can't avoid talking about sex when you're talking about HIV. So I used my humor and I used my transparency in my process, and I also commanded to be seen as a human being beyond being HIV. I'm still the same marvelous. So when I sit on those tables, I'm not sitting just to tick boxes. I'm sitting to challenge policies. I'm sitting to demand rights, because we still have human rights even if we are living with HIV. So everything that I do is intentional. I went back to school to learn the language that the people that I sat on tables used. Because at first I used to find it a challenge to understand the word. For
Mm-hmm.
example, you've talked about intersectionality. There's some terms that we use in epidemiology, the statistics. I needed to go back and learn about those things. That when I'm arguing, when I'm asking and advocating for things, we are talking the same language. I'm understanding what you are saying. So for me, that's how I managed to be where I am. I had to fight. I had to, as a black woman, I have to. Sometimes I'm the only black woman on the table in
Mm-hmm.
some of the spaces that I go to. But I have to know, I when I'm going there, I'm not talking as an individual person. I know I've got my ancestors, I've got my village in the back of me when I'm demanding those things I'm demanding. So sometimes I'm hearing a voice of another colleague, I'm hearing a voice of a mentor or someone. So when I'm talking, I'm just not talking about me. I'm bringing
Mm-hmm.
what I've learned in the field. So it's all about forcing and demanding to be in those spaces. That's how I got to be here. It was not just given on a platter. I had to fight for it, and I will continue fighting for it.
Fantastic. Thank you once again. Uh, well, again, you just broke down layers, and then seeing how you took your struggles and then you made them your strength, and then how
Yeah.
intentional you were with them, and then it's fun. It's amazing. I also looked about. I saw your because she cares,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, okay, this is, you know, when we talk about research, again, you
Mm-hmm.
talk about trying to pull out resources. The different methods, the different many, especially when it's been institutionalized, you know,
Mm-hmm.
people talk about quantitative method, the research method, and all of that. But then I saw how you use storytelling to tell you, it's just the art space to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
It gives the depth to what you were saying, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not just, you're not just saying this based on statistics, but
Mm-hmm.
you, the way you pass this message are very
Mm-hmm.
powerful, and using art is,
Mm-hmm.
it's just one very, it's a potent tool that you've used. um uh, just to touch a bit about this, what are some of the, I know you said stigma is, you know,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that majorly that kill people who actually have HIV.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so what are some of these significant struggles or challenges that individuals who have HIV, what do they face, in our modern times?
So when a person discovers that they have HIV, they tend to experience a range of feelings,
Hmm.
from fear and anger to denial to blaming yourself that I knew better, I should have
Yeah.
protected myself. And that can cause a delay in people in accessing care. So grief and loss. And let alone, we don't talk about grief and loss most of the time. Some
Hmm.
people suffer in silence. So you find people who present to care when they are already in late diagnosis. They don't have HIV anymore. They have
Hmm.
AIDS, and people don't even know the difference between HIV and AIDS. So most of them, when they're diagnosed, they just have HIV. They don't have AIDS. So which means they can take care of themselves and they can still remain that way. But most people, it's just that the way HIV is seen. the way that they perceive HIV themselves. They say, what will people say about me? So maintaining a balanced lifestyle and seeking treatment for other medical issues can help those
Mm-hmm.
with living with HIV, because you're not just living with HIV. Once the virus gets into your system, it starts fighting with your antibodies. So
Yeah.
you are having high risk of getting other like other comorbidities like diarrhea, like any other disease that everyone else gets, because your immune system is low. But once you take care of yourself, and taking care of yourself doesn't mean just taking medication. It
Yeah.
means self-care, eating well, exercising. So but if you are in that mental state that you're feeling sorry for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you're just feeling like you are lesser than anyone else, you're not able to do those things. So some of the things that people actually face is, besides stigma, is HIV disclosure.
Mm.
So disclosing about HIV is not just a one-off thing; it's a journey. Because every time when you're HIV positive, you repeat the same story over and over again. So people don't like repeating the same story. You go to see a dentist, you have to say I'm HIV positive. Then
Mm.
people ask you, how did you get it? No, so people don't want to disclose because of the stigma. But
Yeah.
if you don't disclose, then the other provider who's taking care of you doesn't know.
Mm.
Maybe you need special care. Like myself, I have diabetes, I have
Mm.
high blood pressure, I have kidney problems.
Mm-hmm.
So my doctors have to work together for them to know that they are prescribing the medication that doesn't affect the other condition.
Mm-hmm.
But for some people, because you don't know where your data goes, you don't know where your information goes, they don't want to disclose their HIV status.
Yeah.
But also, I see in a lot of mothers, it's not about themselves that they are concerned about, but they
Mm.
concerned that if my community then knows that I'm HIV positive, my children will be discriminated. So
Mm-hmm.
then they don't disclose. But also, we also tell people it's not just for the sake of disclosing. You have to ask yourself, is there the need for me to disclose? Because
Yeah.
we know now when you take treatment, you become undetectable. And
Yeah.
undetectable doesn't mean that the virus is gone. It's still in my system, but it's
But
not replicating. So I'm just
mhm.
like my old self. So I can still do the same things that I used to do before, and transmitting HIV is less likely. But there are all other things also, like other STDs, other things that you have to think about.
Yeah.
And then the other issue is criminalization of HIV
Mm.
non-disclosure. So in some states, in some places, once you do not disclose your HIV, regardless of whether you are undetectable, we've seen some people being charged for
Yeah.
negligence, that you were supposed to disclose your HIV. So some people, that's also hinders accessing
Mm-hmm.
services or talking about their HIV to their sexual significant others. So
Yeah.
those are some of the challenges. But there's also, we know people think that areas like Canada, all of us has access to treatment. It's not the same. Each
Mm-hmm.
province is different. So sometimes they don't have insurance that covers their medication, or they
Yeah.
don't know how to get those documents, or they are undocumented. They're still going through their process of getting when I say documented, I mean whether you're a Canadian permanent resident or you're a Canadian citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have those status, there are ways of getting medication. But if you don't have those status, some people will go a long time, whether you came as an international student, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't know whether your insurance covers, or you are scared that if I get my coverage, who else sees my information? So
Yeah.
those are the issues that also, and the distance to go to get to the healthcare centers if you are living in remote areas.
Mm. That's a very that's a range of
Mm,
discussion. We could actually have that as a topic,
yeah.
to discuss.
Mm,
I mean, that's really cool. Uh, Looking at how things have actually changed over the years from 1995 like to our current state, what has changed? What has informed you? Looking back, how do you connect to the past, and then how has that informed your present?
I think For me, a lot has changed. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we talk about stigma, but I've seen a lot of people now being able to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of diverse people also. Their children born with HIV, that didn't ask to be born with HIV, who are out there advocating, raising awareness. Treatment itself has evolved. I
Mm-hmm.
used to take a lot of medication just for the HIV, despite all the other diseases that I've talked about. But
Yeah.
now I'm taking one pill a day for the HIV. And so, same applies with the other medications that we are taking, like diabetes. There's also progress. So, there's progress in science and
Mm-hmm.
in medication. But also, there's coordinated efforts. There's
Mm-hmm.
coordination. Everyone is wanting to know more about HIV. So you find like kidney specialists also understands about HIV, and research is being done more and more in bringing more interventions. But
Yeah.
there's also, despite just the science in medication changing, policies have changed. We've seen
Yeah.
policies are advancing. When I came here to Canada, for example, I was coming from an area in Africa where women who were HIV positive were allowed to breastfeed continuously without mixing formula. So you breastfeed your baby, and you take your treatment. But when I came to Canada, infant feeding was not in the guidelines. You were not allowed to breastfeed. But now I've seen there are physicians who are supporting women to breastfeed. There are physicians who are looking at guidelines, changing guidelines, working with public health. So
Yeah.
there's even criminalization that I've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
It's changing. There have been advocacy that has been done to change because
Mm-hmm.
of U equals U, of that science has changed. So there's so much work and combined effort from researchers, from people living with HIV. I've seen a lot of people living with HIV taking roles. I'm HIV positive. I'm working in a pharma. I never dreamt of working in a farm. I hate science. I hate statistics.
But
But
you're here now.
I'm here now. I'm
Changing the
making
world.
change. I'm bringing change within the farmer, bringing my lived experience and talking about where funding should go on
Mm-hmm.
HIV. So I've seen like opportunities, but we still have a long way to go. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
same. I've seen people living with HIV leading AIDS service organizations or
Mm-hmm.
being researchers. So we are seeing change both on knowledge, but also moving knowledge into practice, using
Yeah.
knowledge into policies. So I'm happy that at least what I'm waiting for a cure.
Mm-hmm.
We
Really?
need a cure.
I hope I hope we get to that point. I hope we
Yeah.
get to that point. Not to digress a little,
Mhm.
respectfully, the religion aspect of it,
Yeah.
tell the people who assume that, or they feel like, especially when they know their status, and they
Mhm.
feel like, oh, I don't have to take any meds. I just have to
Mhm.
pray and then
Yeah.
just really do exercises to go away. What's your take on that?
Yeah, we've lost actually a lot of people because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I know even in Canada, I know of some people who stopped medication because they received some holy water that they were told that if you pray in tongues, if you pray more, you are going to be healed. Maybe there are some that have been healed. I don't want to deny. I'm a Christian myself,
Mm-hmm.
but my faith has not gone that far. I take my
Mm.
medication. I don't stop taking my medication. I ask God to talk to make my medication work in me. I
Mhm.
don't have that faith enough to stop taking my medication.
Yeah.
But I encourage people to know that you have to take your medication, and be living with HIV and taking you medication doesn't make you less Christian. Doesn't
Yeah.
make you less faithful. So
Mm-hmm.
we've seen also when you're talking about progress, we've
Mm-hmm.
seen organizations like faith organizations that have leaders who are positive and are
Mm-hmm.
also talking about their status and are also encouraging their congregations, whether you are gay, whether you are trans, whether you whatever, how you identify yourself, to come to church and to
Mm-hmm.
find refuge in church and still live your authentic life and
Mm-hmm.
live positively with HIV. So
Fantastic.
we encourage even not only faith leaders, we encourage, most people have got different faiths, traditional healers. We also encourage them not to stop people take their medication. If you are going to introduce traditional medication, can you find out if that medication doesn't also interdict with the medication that someone is taking? Because there are some herbs like Johnson once. People say don't take that with your HIV medication. So we encourage them to stay abreast with research too.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's a very clear way to say it and to put it, which is really really great. So thank you. Of course, when we talk about HIV, and this, you can't take sex out of the box. I mean, what are ways could you talk about safe sex practices and also HIV prevention?
I think when we're talking about safe sex, I just wanted to say what I mean by the safe sex, most people have got different interpretations of words.
Yeah.
For me, safe sex means not letting your partner's semen or vaginal fluids getting inside your vagina, anus, penis, or mouth. That's safe sex. But if you allow it, then you have to know, you should have gone for testing to know whether you are HIV positive or you are negative. If you are positive, how do you prevent transmitting HIV to your partner? And we've talked about U equals U, but also that doesn't mean that if you are undetectable, you are not going to get other sexually transmitted diseases. So it's important for both people to know their status of whether they have gonorrhea, whether they've got syphilis, so for them to practice safer sex. So, and it's also an informed choice. It's about individuals. If I want to have it raw, I don't want to use a condom, so let me make that decision. And we know these days people use also camp sex. They take drugs to enhance their sex drive. If you are going to be involved in those things, know your status, know whether you are HIV positive. How do you prevent yourself? There is also advancement in PrEP. People take PrEP. So PrEP is a medication that is almost like the one taken by people living with HIV, but it also prevents you from getting HIV. Get more information about PrEP. Find out what is available. But above all, get regular medical checkups. See us, and you can do it physically. Check your partner's vagina or check your partner's penis. We don't have to be shy to do that. We're not shy to have sex, but we want to switch off the light when you are having sex. How are you going to see if the person have got blisters? How are you going to see if the person they're dripping? We have to have those open conversations. And also, if you're going to use condoms, get the condoms at a reliable source. Keep them at a place where they're also in an environment where they're not going to have holes. But also ask your doctor about pre-exposure prophylaxis, and get to know if you are in a serodiscordant relationship. And by serodiscordant, I mean one is positive, one is negative. Find out what works for you. So safer sex, in a summary, is just knowing how do you protect yourself and how do you protect your significant others. If you are pregnant, how do you protect your baby from getting infected?
Fantastic. Thank you for that. That was well detailed. It was so good. Okay. What could you recommend resources or organizations network that supports people living with HIV, or those who want to be involved in the process, just to know?
So with organizations, I can recommend, but there is also public health websites. If you go on public health websites, you can also get information, and resources are different from each province. So what I just do, like I go into different locations during my work. I just go in Google. I just type in my Google search HIV services in Edmonton, and it will bring me all HIV services in Edmonton. If you are lucky enough, every organization, there is a resource actually that's there already. That has got a list of organizations, and some provinces have got networks. Like in Canada, we've got the Canadian AIDS Society. If you go on their website, if you type Canadian AIDS Society, it gives you a list of all organizations. But some who are not affiliated with them will not be there. Then there's also your organizations that are not really AIDS safe organizations, like Shabak, like also Ribbon Rouge. They also do work that is HIV related, but might not provide services themselves, but they will have resources. Like the Ontario AIDS Network also lists organizations that are in Ontario. So each province has got a resource. So I advise people to say, if you need a specific, like if I want African Caribbean, if you just type Mr. Google or Mrs. Google, can give you all this organizations. But your public health sectors also have got all
Yeah.
those resources.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Marvelous. It's been wonderful having this conversation. I mean, these topics are something we could actually talk it for the whole day, and it's still sad. We would have to let you go briefly. Well, I just want to ask you just one question. So, just a question, something you could tell us to the public, before you go. The question is, what key messages or goals do you have for the public in regards World AIDS Day?
So World AIDS Day is an annual event. In case others do not know what is World AIDS Day, that reminds us of the global struggles of HIV-related stigma, an opportunity for us to honor those that we've lost, but also those that are living with HIV. It's also an opportunity to honor our allies in the HIV work, including reminding ourselves that it continues to be a public health threat. HIV still continues. So for me, especially for this year, the theme is remember and commit. And for me, you can commit in different ways. So I want to leave a message that when you look at the word HIV, I always tell people, don't look at it as the word HIV. For me, it means hope is vital. So hope
No,
is
please say that again.
vital.
Say it again. Say
So
it again.
so the word HIV, I take the H to mean hope, I to mean is, V to mean vital. And the
Amazing.
word AIDS, the word AIDS, AIDS, for
Yes.
me means, am I doing something?
Mm.
So ask yourself as an individual, am I doing something to combat stigma? Am I doing something to support my sibling who's living with HIV, rather than me discriminating them, not touching what they eat, not touching or allowing them to touch my baby? What am
Yeah.
I doing? Learn more about HIV yourself before you start attacking other people. Get tested yourself before attacking other people, because the reason what kills other people is the words that they were saying about others before they got to know about their status themselves. And then we need to build the capacity of people living with HIV to take roles in the HIV sector too, because they know best about what they go through. So work with them to develop programs, to evaluate programs, let them show you what really matters to them. And then also for us, like funders, like I'm a funder myself in my other head, we need to commit more funding to HIV, because we are seeing a lot of funding being deducted or programs shut. Let's commit more to supporting HIV programs. And I think for all of us, we just say it's not those. HIV impacts all of us.
Yeah, it
It's
does.
not about other people. One's pain should be our pain as a community. If we lose one person living with HIV, that's wisdom lost. If we lose one person living with HIV, that's a generation of other kids that were supposed to be born. And so we need to work together. We
Yeah.
need to address the social injustices that we face in the community. We need to continue the conversations. And also, when we come in the diaspora, let's look at how culture, how religion, how social norms also impact how people access services and how people see themselves. Let's allow to ourselves to forgive. And if you are living with HIV, please just forgive yourself. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not a sinner. You
Mm.
didn't. Everyone can get HIV. Let's demystify HIV, and above all, united we stand and divided we
Right
fall.
before. Yes, thank you very thank you so much, marvelous. That was incredible. It was so good to actually have you here. Tell us about your story, your journey, and the impacts and the downfalls, the struggles, and also you recommending this to us. I mean, I'll go home with this, telling people hope is vital. And am I
Yes,
doing something? It's a pledge to myself, and I hope to people out there listening to us as well. Thank you once again.
thank
I
you.
hope you have a wonderful day. Thank
Thank
you.
you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Most welcome.